Welcome to another episode, everyone. In state prison in 1994, in my first prison, Avenal State Prison, I got my first introduction into how a grown man can try to groom another man to rob him of his manhood. As an older black dude there in the dorm in Avenal State Prison, his name was TP. He used to be a gang member, but he had given it up. TP would run around the yard with a Bible in his hand, preaching to the younger brothers on the yard about giving up their gang banging tendencies and turning their life over to the Lord. However, come to find out, TP, had a sick fetish, a fetish for younger males. Now, this is not necessarily sick in and of itself, a man wanting to be with another man, but they're in prison. This is frowned upon. But it's more prevalent on a level 2 yard, a level 3 yard even. It is non-existent on a level 4 yard. TP had been incarcerated for over 30 years. There on these level 2 yards, some people are there because they have been in prison for many decades and have been running a smooth program for the last 10 years, 15 years, their whole time in prison, 20 plus years, what have you. And so now their level drops. They went from a level 4, did 15 years on a level 4, went to a level 3, did 5, 6, 7, 8 years on a level 3, and then their points dropped, and now they're down to a level 2. So some of these dudes had been incarcerated for some time. TP was one of them. And also on the yard was a younger white dude with a long ponytail. Now, he was real young, perhaps 20 years old. I, myself, was 20 years old at the time. Again, this was my very first, other than Wasco, the reception for prison, they sent me to Avenal from Wasco. So this is my first mainline prison, and it's a level 2. It wasn't the place to learn about prison, was Avenal whatsoever. TP is making comments about the young white dude, I don't recall his name, that is there in the dorm. He's making comments to other brothers about the attractiveness of this younger white dude, with his ponytail and all. And he says that he likes to switch in front of him, that he is doing this on purpose. One of the young black dudes came to me and said that TP was gazing at the young white guy while he was in the shower. The young white dude was, and he had his back exposing his buttocks to TP, who was down there in the day room, apparently fixated upon the young white dude, could not take his eyes off of him. The young brother was telling me, man, just watch when a young white dude goes in the shower again, watch TP. And the reason that I'm telling you this, bro, is because he's going to have us in a riot. He's making comments at this white dude, thinking that he doesn't know that he's trying to groom him. What does he think is going to happen here in the dorm? It's exposed, it's open, everyone can see what's going on. He thinks he's going to be able to go behind a curtain with someone from another race and people are not going to realize what's going on, that something's going on behind a curtain. What is this white dude doing over here anyway? I mean, what? But this is how delusional he is and how fixated he is upon the young white guy, who he clearly has an infatuation for, if not a fetish. Now, some of the blacks on the yard and in the dorm are apprehensive and on edge. TP, he decides to up the ante. And he writes a kite nonetheless, a love letter, if you will, to the white guy, and had someone take it to him. The white guy read this love letter in which TP is saying that he thinks that his hair is nice and silky, and that essentially he has the cheeks of a J-Lo. The white guy reads the kite and says, "What the hell is this? Who does this guy think I am?" TP, excuse me if I said TC before, I get it mixed up, but it's TP. He let it be known that it was him who had written the kite. He wanted the white guy to know that it was him that had his eyes on him and that wanted to clap his cheeks. So the white guy knew who had written the kite, and he took it to his shot call and explained what happened. And again, in the kite, TP is saying that he had been watching the young white boy for weeks, and that his best time of the day is when the white guy got in the shower. The white boys catch TP on the yard and surround him. This is a level 2 yard. They rarely have knives. The white boys are severely outnumbered here on the yard. So they don't make a move on TP. They're just questioning him. Now, none of us know what's going on. We don't know that TP has written a letter, a love letter, to the young white guy. We are aware of the fact that he's made certain advances or innuendos towards the white guy and have made comments to blacks about the white guy. Again, on a level 4 yard, he would have been removed immediately, but this is a level 2. Used to call it Disneyland. Not a lot of structure. People get away with all sorts of stuff here. There's some violence there. There's some illicit activity there, but for the most part, people have 4 months to go home, 6 months. You know, they're not about to be attacking you with knives there on a level 2 yard there in Avenal. For the most part, TP knows this. He himself has a history of having a propensity to use a knife, having come from a level 4 yard and such. But over the last decade or so, he's been cool, he's been quiet. This is how he was able to make it down to the level 2 yard. So the blacks see that TP is surrounded by the whites. And they approach. And they say, "What's the issue here? What's going on? What's going on?" And then TP breaks away from the whites, essentially, and he says that the whites were asking him about some debt that he owed, but that he had straightened it out. The whites eventually came to the hierarchy of the blacks later on that night and had explained what it was really about. That TP had written a love letter to their people. Not only that, come to find out that they had already approached TP, and TP had put it off on someone else. He said that someone else, another black, had written the kite. had written the love letter. This is what he told the whites. The whites told TP, well, if that's the case, we want the person gone that wrote the kite. We want him rolled up. We want him out of here quickly. We want him damaged. We want him violently and viciously removed from the yard. It just so happens that the homie Big Will, OG Will, from Bonnie Hunter had left the yard. He didn't roll it up. He just had transferred somewhere. And TP had told the whites that he left. And basically told him, was talking about Will, showed him his bunk, gave him his name, said he left before I could attack him, before I can do something to him about writing your people this love letter. He put it off on the OG homie from Bonnie Hunter. But he's the one that had written the kite, and the whites knew that. He had already made that clear in the kite. And this is dangerous because had this been a level 4, they can send word to wherever the OG homie had transferred to, whatever prison, they would send word there to handle him. The whites would have. Had it been a level 4 prison. And he's sitting there on the yard getting stabbed up, not knowing what the hell is going on. What he's getting stabbed up for the whole time is because this dude, who has a fantasy in his mind and is grooming with this letter and trying to befriend this younger white guy, is trying to groom him for the takedown, has put him all in the mix of something that he had nothing to do with. And this came back to the blacks because the whites had surrounded TP on the yard because they found out that Will did not roll it up, that he did not write any kite, that he just naturally transferred, and that TP was indeed the culprit as far as they were concerned and was just putting it off on someone else. And so when the blacks caught wind of this, that not only had he wrote or written a love letter, a clear violation to someone, another race, a white guy, whoever you write it to though, is all bad. But then you're going to put it off on someone that had nothing to do with it and can put him and put his life in danger by saying that he's the one that had written the kite and has been harboring this fetish. The die was set. The decision was in swiftly. TP had to go. The blacks told the whites that they would take care of it. That they didn't appreciate TP trying to victimize the young white dude and then lie about it, deny it, and put it off on another brother, a OG, a reputable, if you will. The audacity and unmitigated gall. The plan was put in place that later on that night, no time would be wasted removing him from the yard. Later on that night, when the lights went out in the dorm, a few people were selected to go over there, throw a sheet over his face when he went to sleep, and then began to beat upon him. There were not really going to be any weapons involved. Again, this is a level 2. It's just not like that, but it's going to be a good beatdown. But come to find out, they had a couple of weapons. Did a couple of these blacks. They were disgusted by the whole ordeal and wanted to send a message. OG or not. Lights went out and they crept over there. You can see them ducking by the wall of TP's bed area. Then they rushed inside of his pod, threw a sheet over his face, and began to pummel him about the face area. TP began to scream, ah, ah. and they was rushing, boom, boom, boom. And one of the blacks did indeed have a little makeshift weapon. And he hit TC, or TP, right there in the guts. Someone else had something in the sock and was ringing it upside his head heavily. And he went out looking like the Elephant Man, lumped up and leaking about the stomach area. TP had been taught a lesson. That to betray your own ilk, your kinfolk, your brethren, and throw him under the bus is unacceptable. You trying to groom a young man, a young white man, is unacceptable. And I understood then that these older dudes, again, I had just turned 20 years old myself the month before I got there. I was 19, I just turned 20. I was 19 when I first got to prison in reception. I turned 20. I headed to Avenal. So I was still very young myself and learning. I'd heard stories growing up, but I'm just now really learning. Seeing it firsthand how a grown man can try to victimize another grown man, albeit a younger one. Try to groom him, and this is what they would do for you youngsters who may end up there if you're not listening and paying attention to me and my channel. And the advice that I try to give you so that you can be devoid of prison all of your life, any type of incarceration, nothing is worth it. But should you be headstrong and willful and not pay attention to my sound advice and find yourself in there, understand that these older men will try to groom you. Sometimes they will test you. You have to stand tall and make it explicitly clear from the beginning that you're not to be played with like that. That blood will be shed. And then you'll be left alone. Because these predators are cowards. And TP wasn't coward, but trying to groom and victimize, talking about the young white dude's cheeks and how he had cheeks like J-Lo and Halle Berry. You're a grown man. What's going on? They brutalized TP, fortunately, and they got him out of there. This was a bit surprising because I had not seen much violence there on that yard up until that point on the level 2 yard. And not a whole lot of violence after that. So this was rare for a level 2 yard for him to be brutalized like that, attacked with weapons and then stabbed with a weapon. This doesn't happen on a level 2 yard. But again, the blacks were outraged and disgusted with his antics, and that was the incentive. Stay safe and stay free, people.